Christ is in our midst. They could tell who wasn't here last week. He was, is, and always shall be. Christ is in our midst. Okay. I want to talk today about a couple things. And the first is the gospel reading. And you might be wondering, why am I preaching now? Because now you're preparing to receive communion. And I think, as your spiritual father, that some of you might not be ready to receive communion today. I think that sometimes our preparation is a 5-minute preparation in the morning, coming to church late, as well as not living by what today's gospel reading is. So how many people were here for the gospel reading? That's about maybe 50%. And I know that as I was sensing, I noticed that people are coming in. When you hear the censer going, you should not be walking into the church. You should wait in the back till you stop hearing the bells, and then you can proceed into the church. So as the priest is sensing like this, it should be motionless in the church. No one should be walking around, coming down the center aisle, leaving, moving, going to the washroom, or whatever the habits are. When you hear the bells, you stop. And when you're directed by the parish council members not to come into the church, you stop as well. So that's a habit we need to get into. And the reason I'm saying that now is because everyone is pretty much here. If I would have said it earlier, it wouldn't have gone to everyone that needs to hear that. So when you hear the bells in the church, you stop doing whatever you're doing. If you're walking, you stop. If you're coming into the church, you stop. If you're in the back and you just finish lighting your candle and you start to walk into the church, you stop. Because it's very distracting for those who are praying. And as the priest is blessing, he's blessing everyone. And sometimes I see as people are doing their crosses, they're being sensed. People are like shoving over. Can I sit here? Is this empty? And pushing to get into the church, which is very distracting towards prayer life. So when you hear the bells, you stop. As you would wish that men would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? For even sinners lend to receive as much again. But love your enemies and do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be called sons and daughters of the Most High. For He is kind to the ungrateful and to the selfish. Be merciful even as your Father is merciful. What have you done this week to stop you from being the first half of this gospel reading? Have you lent in expectation of receiving? Have you forgiven in hopes of being forgiven? Or have you forgiven in just plain, I forgive you, not expecting anything in return? What sets you apart from your preparation for receiving communion today that makes you different from what the gospel talks about? Have you done this? Have you forgiven and expected nothing in return? Were you merciful? Or did you express anger to someone? Or just, like I say, drop a scud bomb on someone, tell them how much you don't like about them or whatever your grievance is, and then walk away? Have you done that? Because if you have, you should not approach today. Have you prayed and prepared? Have you fasted this week? Have you been here for the liturgy? Because you'll all come up, or most of you will come up, and I find it hard that everyone was here at 9:30 when I give communion to almost everyone who's here, and I see who comes in, and you keep coming late, and you keep coming in the middle of the liturgy with your mouth open like little birds expecting to get the worm and to go on your day, and that's going to make you strong. It's not going to save you. Coming to church and coming up the side aisle as the priest is giving communion with your mouth open, not even remembering sometimes what your baptismal name, will not save your soul. Coming at 10 o'clock will not save your soul. Coming at 10:15 will not save your soul. Being unmerciful will not save your soul. So you have to ask yourself, what am I doing here? Am I praying? Am I fasting? Am I preparing for communion? Do I understand what I'm receiving? Because St. Paul reminds us, if we come up unworthily, we will be burned. You might not feel heat in your mouth, but you're scorching your soul with the unworthiness to receive something that you have not prepared to receive. If you've come late today, don't make a mockery of Holy Communion. Don't think that you can just show up whenever you want and come up to the front and receive Holy Communion. It's a joke to God. And you're just fooling yourself thinking that that is going to be... It's not a drive-through. It's not McDonald's here where you just come in 30 seconds and then you're out on your way. You come late. I know there's no seats. I know that it's tight in here. However, if we were all here, we would realize that there is a crunch for seating and say, gee, Father, our church is too small. What can I do to help to build a bigger one? Instead, our attitude is, let me come at the last second so I don't have to babysit my kids in church. I can come up for communion, send them to a babysitter for 45 minutes, and I can sit and relax in church for another 20 minutes and then go into the hall. That is not what church is about. And I keep preaching this over and over and over. And it sounds like I'm yelling at you, and I am. Because it's just not good for your souls to do this. It doesn't affect my soul, it affects yours. And I'm responsible for your souls. So I have to teach you. And as a parent is firm with their children, I'm being firm with you, asking you, have you set yourself aside this week to be different from what the gospel reading says? Have you made an effort this morning to get here on time, to participate in the liturgy, to hear the gospel not from my lips now, but from God's mouth earlier in the liturgy? Do you know what the orthro service is? Have you ever seen it? Have you ever heard of Eυλογημένοι at the beginning of the liturgy? These are questions that we have to partake of the liturgy. We just can't show up when we want to and open our mouths and say, I received Holy Communion today, I'm good for the day, I can go. And it's interesting, I've been changing the time of the sermons to kind of throw people off, and someone came up to me a couple weeks ago and they said, Father, why didn't you preach last week? Or, this past week, or that Sunday? And I said, I did. And that tells me what time you came to church. Because I preached when it's supposed to be preached, which is after the gospel reading, which told me that person, out of ignorance, didn't know, and missed the entire gospel reading and the sermon. We have to be serious about this. If you show up here and you just nonchalantly come to church, and you think that you set the time of when your liturgy starts and when your prayer time starts, you're not saving your souls. You're wasting your time. So as you come to receive communion today, have you done these things? Have you fasted? Have you prayed? Did you fast Wednesday and Friday, or did you pray this week at all? Did you say any of the communion prayers now and feel them? Did you express anger to someone this week and not say you were sorry? Because as St. John Chrysostom says, if you come to the liturgy, St. John Chrysostom, the person who wrote the liturgy, says, if you come to the liturgy and you have a grievance with your brother, leave. He says, leave the liturgy. Go resolve the grievance with whoever it is, and once you do that, then you can come back and make your offering to the church. Have you done these things this week? Who is it? Let me answer it. That's another thing we have to go through. I think everybody's phone has a mute button on it, and that would be nice if we could figure that out in the manuals, how to mute our phones for the liturgy. I think it's distracting. I'm not trying to point you out. I know it happens every week with someone here and there, you hear a Batman theme or whatever. Let's try and be prayerful. So if you have not prepared to receive communion, just stay. Just sit, pray for forgiveness, pray that God forgives you for things that you've done wrong this week or haven't done. Because apathy is one of the greatest sins. It doesn't have to be a particular sin, but apathy, the inability or lack of enthusiasm to do anything is a sin. So evaluate, are you ready to come up here and to open your mouth and to receive the King of all, the ultimate of our church? Are you prepared? That's what I ask. And I ask over and over and over. Come to church on time. And I know it sounds, everybody's, well, it's my day off, or I don't have time. No one can say traveling is a distance. No one has the right in this church to say that they live too far away to get to church on time. All right? If so, come talk to me. And I'm not saying that as a kudo to me or to my family or anything, but don't use that as an excuse. Don't use, I have a hard time getting my kids up and ready on a Sunday, because you do it for school. Don't have a hard time saying it's hard for me to get up on a Sunday, because you do it for work. And you do it to get your kids ready for school. You get up earlier than they do so you can make their lunch and get them ready and do all these things. And for some reason, the devil has a strong hold on Sundays and makes us think that we can't do these things. We can do them, but sometimes we choose not to. So evaluate. Are you just one of the regulars that Christ references? Or are you the merciful? Are you the forgiving? Are you the peaceful at heart that Christ asks us to be? Have you prayed? Have you fasted? And do you know what you're doing when you come up here? It's unto life everlasting, forgiveness of sins, but it's also unto judgment and condemnation. And you read that in the prayers that we sometimes just blow through on Sundays, and we say the communion prayers. We say that too. We know that it's for those four things: judgment, condemnation for the unworthy, or forgiveness of sins and life eternal for those who are prepared. If you are prepared, come forward. If not, please. Amen.